All right, here is your second gesture drawing. So we're gonna do the same points. I'm still using Vine charcoal. I'm gonna plot the legs, the weight-bearing leg, the hip, and the shoulders. And then we can add those kind of fun things like the elbows and the hands. But this time I'm doing a girl that's not facing everything straight on. So we're gonna be drawing this girl that's kind of off to the side. Here, her weight-bearing leg would be this one. It's kind of coming forward. It's the one that, I know she's in motion and right now she's essentially in the air, but this is the leg that when she does make that step down to the ground is gonna be touching the ground. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is, let's see, I wanna make sure you can still see her. First thing I'm gonna do is add the head. I'm gonna go down that weight-bearing leg, and here you can see that down doesn't mean straight down, it means kind of following that curve of her body, but I wanna do it quick because gesture drawing is done quick. So I'm gonna go almost in like a little L shape. I'm gonna erase this little tail that I drew too far, but ultimately that's kind of the shape that I'm going for with her pose. I'm gonna plot her hips, and if we look here, her right hip and her left hip are gonna be pretty close together because you're seeing her from a side view. Her right hip is actually a little bit higher up because the way this photo is angled, this leg is coming back, so this hip is actually a smidge higher. So I'm going to draw her hips in here, and her right hip is gonna be a smidgen higher. You'll see that a little bit better when it comes time to beef these things up. But left and right hip. I'm gonna add her shoulders. Don't forget to save room for her neck. She does have a neck, even though it's a little bit covered in this photo by hair, but we know that ultimately she does still have a neck. Her shoulders are in line with each other because we're seeing her from the side view. Her shoulders, her right shoulder is here, and her left shoulder is essentially behind it. But where things get pretty fun here is when you add the other legs and the elbows. So this elbow, I'm gonna plot a point and it's gonna come out and up, and her hand is like almost at nose height here. So there's her arm. Her other arm, I'm gonna move this to the side so that you can see it. Hopefully you can see through my drawing a little bit. Her other arm, her shoulder is up here. It's gonna come down to this elbow, and then her hand kind of tucks back by her hip. So I'm gonna add that here. Let's see, it's actually gonna come down a little bit. So that's the beautiful thing about Vine charcoal is it's easily kind of hidden when you make an error. Comes down, and her hand, we said here, was kind of going into her hip. So I've kind of tucked that hand behind her hip. And now we're gonna add her leg. So her right leg, it's gonna come off at the hip, it comes back, and then over. And go hip, back, and over. And then her foot's kind of trailing off here. If you want to go back and add like the knee to this leg, you could add the knee to kind of shape up that leg. You could add this little foot. I always like to add their little feet and knees. All right, so we have this basic pose of this gal running. Some things that I would do would be check your points. One thing that I noticed in my drawing is her knee, I want to make sure that it's farther back than her elbow. Her shoulder and her hip should be relatively in line with one another. This elbow, you can see it kind of in relationship to this knee. It makes sure that your elbow is behind your knee. And I think we're relatively good on those points here. I think we're good. I'm gonna change this angle just slightly to match my photo here. Sorry, it's hard to see, but I'm just trying to kind of match up my photo. And boom, we have another fancy looking stick figure.